Hello? Hello? Arts College Literature Festival, Stage 1, Nedal. Name of the session, Understanding Hindutva in conversation with Jyotirmaya Sharma and A.M. Shinas. Jyotirmaya Sharma is a professor of political sciences at the Department of Political Science and served as Dean of School of Social Sciences at the University of Hyderabad, Telangana in India. He was also a member of Scientific Advisory Committee of the French Network of Institute for Advanced Study, RFIEA, between 2013 and 2016. The International House Japan awarded him the Asia Fellowship Leadership Fellow Program Fellowship of 2008. Sharma also held the senior editorial positions at the Times of India and the Hindu between 1998 and 2006. A.M. Shinas, Associate Professor and the Head of Department of History, Government College, Madapalli, a bilingual writer who contributes to English and Malayalam newspapers and periodicals, focusing on social, political, and international issues. Sir, we welcome both to the session.
Thank you. It is a pleasure to welcome Professor Jyotirmaya Sharma to this celebration of words and ideas. Since Professor Sharma is from Hyderabad, myself and most of the audience are from Calicut. I was reminded of a book published in 2003, authored by Ashutosh Vashni, another political scientist based in Brown University, USA. The title of the book is Ethnic Conflict and Civic Life, Hindus and Muslims in India. In that book, Ashutosh Vashni examines three pairs of cities. One pair is Calicut and Aligarh. The other pair is Surat and Ahmedabad. And the third pair is Lucknow and Hyderabad. And Ashutosh Vashni, when he examined these three pairs, he argues that one city in each pair with a history of communal violence, and one city in each pair with a history of relative communal harmony. Although this question is not directly related to our subject, have you read that book, and how does you reflect about Hyderabad in that book?
Thank you, first of all, for agreeing to speak with me. It's a great honor and privilege to be in conversation with you. And it's, again, a great honor and privilege to be back in this wonderful college, whose amazing strengths I have been discovering since yesterday, some of which makes the University of Hyderabad's infrastructure at least pale into insignificance. To your question about what do I feel about Hyderabad, you see, some years ago, there used to be this journal called Seminar, and they did a series of issues on cities, and they did one on Hyderabad. And I wrote a piece on Hyderabad. You see, the best people to write about a city are people who are not born there, perhaps. So I am a Hyderabadi by choice. I am a Hyderabadi by the longevity of the period I have lived in any city in my life. And so my essay on Hyderabad at that point of time, when I wrote it, reflected a deep love of the city, a deep admiration for the city, and a great deal of respect for the city. So I would like to, since you asked the question, reflect on three aspects of my association with Hyderabad. The first is, I think the sense of profound repose that they have. Despite being a bustling city these days, with the high-tech city almost resembling Singapore or Hong Kong, at least parts of it, this sense of time, the temporality, is unique. So Hyderabad has a very interesting term which they use, which comes from Hindi, Hindustani, parson. Parson literally means day before yesterday or day after tomorrow. But in Hyderabad, parson means eternal time. When was the Indus Valley civilization formed? Abhi parson, they will say, just day before yesterday. It gives you a perspective about what kind of history we ought to be doing, rather than this whole business of evidence, solidity, and so on and so forth. I think I love this idea about Hyderabad. You tell an electrician, when are you going to come to repair my whatever? And he says, "Abhi parson aata hu sahab. I just come parson." It could mean 1 day, it could mean 2 days, it could mean 10 days, it could mean 10 years. There's no telling. Now, you would call it in the modern lingo inefficiency, lack of professionalism, and all those things. I think it's a wonderful thing about not getting too agitated about the trivialities of life. So that's the first, the sense of time. The second is something I feel in Calicut as well. Beautiful city. I saw the beach yesterday for the nth time. I keep coming to Calicut, by the way. So I've seen the beach up close yesterday, Valentine's Day yesterday. The festivities were quite fantastic to watch. It's a beautiful city, it has a lot of energy, but it doesn't hide behind any pretense, either of history or of quickly achievement. And I think Hyderabad is very much that. I mean, if you discount the Charminar, which is anyway falling apart sadly, it doesn't hide behind anything. So that we don't pretend to be the cultural capital of anywhere. The maximum that the medical and pharmaceutical industry is trying to argue these days is it's the medical capital of the country, but hardly medical tourism capital actually. They add the word tourism to reduce the seriousness of it. So that's the second aspect. I think I said in that article that I love being in Hyderabad because at times it's so boring being there, nothing happens, that you can actually do some serious work. I mean, I don't imagine having written the books I have written in Delhi. I mean, there would be a concert every day, there'd be a play every day, there'd be a lecture every day. And you attend those not because you want to attend them, but because it's obligatory to attend them. It's part of the I scratch your back, you scratch my back syndrome. And I hated Delhi for that, and thank God I left Delhi. So that's the second aspect. The third aspect is a certain kind of gentleness. Now that gentleness is not unique to Hyderabad, it's unique to all of the South, by and large, with few exceptions. My first encounter with this gentleness was when I was less than a week old in Hyderabad. And another car hit my car. And I thought, God, I mean, I had the Delhi habits of mind. So I thought, oh God, these drivers now are going to abuse their families, their mothers, their sisters, everybody. It's going to be an ugly scenario. Nothing of that sort happened. My driver got out of the car, went to the other driver and said to him, the offending driver, I hope you didn't get hurt. And I said, I could live in this city. It's a fascinating city. So that's why Hyderabad is my city, and it remains so. The high tech, I thought, would ruin the city in many ways. The modernization would ruin it. Nothing has ruined it because some of these elements are in the DNA, so to say. It's part of life.
Ashutosh Vashni's focus is on intercommunity and intra-community linkages in the 6 cities. Where inter and intra-community linkages are strong, those cities are mostly devoid of, not completely devoid of, mostly devoid of communal violence, and those cities where inter-community and intra-community linkages are not at all strong, their communal violence are a recurring feature. So the question is, in your books about Hindu nationalism and Hindu identity, the genealogy of Hindu nationalism and Hindu identity, you most often underscore a very important point. That is, Hindutva and Hinduism are indistinguishable. Hinduism is the dominant face of Hindutva. There are other faces too. But the liberal progressive thinkers and even historians like Romila Thapar, they have been always arguing that Hinduism and Hindutva are different watertight compartments. You cannot equate Hinduism and Hindutva as like Islam and Islamism. So you are emphasizing not the difference, but now and then stresses the point that Hindutva is the present dominant face of Hinduism. Could you elaborate on this point?
Thank you for raising this at the outset, because that's the single most significant point that I have retained from the very beginning in all my books and articles. I think it's commonsensical. You cannot say, I give this example everywhere, so if you have seen it or read it somewhere, I ask for your apology. I apologize to you for it, for repetition. Now, I'm 60 years old plus. I have gray hair, mostly gray hair. My mind is still intact. I'm not going cuckoo in any sense. I've put on weight over the years for various reasons. I become slower in terms of my body movements. I have a back pain, chronic back pain these days. So that affects me. And I'm talking to you at this moment. And I take out from my pocket a picture of me when I was 18 and say to you, the real me is this, the picture. What you see in front of you, this old, aging, senile, at least formally senile, officially senile, corpulent, aging individual is not Jyotirmaya Sharma. This is a distortion of Jyotirmaya Sharma. Jyotirmaya Sharma has been distorted over the years. The real one is this tall, dark, handsome man of 18. I think when people like Romila Thapar and others argue that these are two distinct, I have always asked them, what is it in Hinduism that you want to save? Because the moment you decide to save whatever you want to save, then you will have to have a conversation with Ambedkar and annihilation of caste. Because even if you save Hinduism to thwart Hindutva, there is nothing emancipatory in the model of Hinduism that you have, which I see profitable to save. So I do not know what do you want to save at the end of the day. And I don't think I have found an answer. I mean, the Hindutva book, you joked in the corridor that I've been reading you since the beginning of the century. It's actually factually true. The Hindutva book came out in 2003. So since 2003, we are in 2025, nobody has given me a satisfactory answer. What is it that you want to save? I have no problem in you saving anyone or anything. We are still a democracy. Even if we are an apologetic democracy, we are still a democracy. What is it that you want to save? Do you want to save the Varna Dharma? Do you want to save the ashrama system? Do you want us to go back in time to something? My yesterday's talk was very consciously chosen only for that reason. What I wanted to show is that it is not that colonialism or colonization or post-colonial India is what it is today. What we have become today is pre-colonial India. And that pre-colonial India is a pre-colonial India which is the embodiment of two central ideas. Those two central ideas are the extreme inherent violence that is within any idea of governance, and what makes that idea of governance possible is the idea of punishment, dandaniti. And as long as, whether in modern forms or medieval forms or any form, you have that Rajadharma Dandaniti nexus, as I call it, we are stuck. So what use is collapsing the two is, I have not understood. What will it do to us? Because at least in saying this is the dominant phase of Hinduism, though not the only phase, and there are gentler phases. There are the several folk ones or private ones. I mean, I often say that I had a grandmother. I mean, had in the sense she's dead. She was a Tamilian from Tanjore. She was a surgeon. She was one of the first surgeons from South India, from Vellore Medical College, CMC Vellore. And she was a surgeon. She performed her duties as a doctor, but she also got up at 3:30 in the morning and in a wet sari, in the North Indian cold, did her puja. But never once did she tell any one of us, follow me. Did she have the prejudices that somebody who is a believer have? Well, non-believers also have the same prejudices. Because these prejudices are part of the social capital. It is not confined to a religion or a particular faith. So I think collapsing the two is a futile exercise, keeping the two separate, apart, and not collapsing them is a futile exercise. Because I have no clarity as to what it's saving. What aspect of Hinduism is being saved?
Your explanation is interesting. You just mentioned about the Dandaniti nexus. And it is very perplexing that in Lieberman Commission report, around 8,000 pages about the destruction of the felling of the Babri Masjid in 1992. You yourself wrote about that or told about that. In that report, there is a paragraph which, there is a sentence in that paragraph which says that India is a democracy because India is Hindu. So this conception of Hinduism, or more accurately Hinduisms, was constructed in 19th century. Hinduism is mild, soft, tolerant, non-violent, accommodating, all-embracing, non-converting, as so on and so forth. How this construction actually happened in 19th century, and in the same 19th century, the second half of the 19th century and in the first part of the 20th century, there was another formalization, conception of Hinduism that is muscular. The paradox, could you explain?
Very complex questions. The 19th century self-conception, the self-image of the Hindu as non-violent, meek, non-materialistic, otherworldly, etc., spiritually inclined, comes from two different trajectories very quickly. One is, of course, what the West said to us we were. And it was a reaction against the missionaries, the Indologists, the Orientalists. The second one, of course, was the very complex of nationalism. Now, there is this new entity that comes to India, the Western nationalism, the new nationalism. This is not the old nationalism of kingdoms and kings and various kinds of people. This is a new nationalism which emerges out of German Romanticism. It emerges out of people like Mazzini, Kavu, Schopenhauer, Herder, Fichte, all these people. And this nationalism defines the nation as having a territory, having a people, having unity, etc., etc. But there is one important element in this new nationalism, which is that the nation must have a core or a center, which basically, the moment you say that, you destroy diversity. Must have a core. Now, can the core of India be science, technology? No, because the West has already taken a march ahead of you as far as science and technology is concerned. The self-image of the Indians at that point of time vis-a-vis the Islamic world, the Muslim world, was that they were at least sort of militantly strong, they could fight wars, etc. So it can't be winning in war, and so on and so forth. So the nationalists in 19th century said, our core strength is spirituality. And they used the word religion and spirituality interchangeably. Now, the moment you say that is our core, then everything has to be defined in terms of the core. Now, it is so difficult to define the core itself. Whose core will be the core? Vaishnavas would say the Shaivites are Rakshasas. We don't care for them. The Shaivites say these Vaishnavites are licentious and sensually inclined. Look at their Gita Govindam and Bhagavad Puran and so on and so forth. This is not what spirituality is about. The Shaktas will say, oh, these are really, ineffective people. They don't understand the strength that comes from the feminine power and so on and so forth. Whose core was it going to be? And then if you found a core, or you came to a conclusion about what the core is, what constitutes the content of the core, then you'll have to define every damn thing in society on the basis of religion. You'll have to define politics on the basis of religion, society on the basis of religion, daily habits on the basis of religion. And this was a conundrum. The second part of it was, what do I take in order for it to fit nationalism? Is sati part of nationalism? No, these missionaries and the British are talking foul about it. No, let's leave sati out. Okay, we'll leave sati out. What about miracles, magic, and so on and so forth? No, how can you have miracles and magic? It's unscientific. Leave that out. What will you take in? You will take in the most boring, the most pedantic, the most pedestrian part of your society as constituting the nation. And that was the problem. Forget what indigenous would you take. How much of the West will we take? Will we take the kind of West that comes to us in certain kinds of literature during the Victorian period which were banned? No, certainly not. What about the morals of the people? We were in such a pathetic condition in the 19th century of having to decide what is desirable for us. Only because we decided we will define the core of the nation. And then that core said that, we must also be masculine, hyper-masculine, because we still not been able to answer the question, why are we a slave nation? We are a slave nation because of these Brahmins and vegetarians and so on and so forth. Now, anybody living in any part of the country would know that those people who are vegetarians are a small minority. I mean, I come from a state, probably the highest meat-eating state in the country. Yeah, so there you go. I think the substance of your very important, very complex question is, are we still living in that 19th century? Is it the long 19th century that we are, quote unquote, suffering at the moment? Or have we moved on? And my respectful answer to you is, I think we are still figuring out the conundrums of the long 19th century. We have not moved anywhere. So that's my long answer to your short question.
Yes. You have written that we all know that many people often, what is Hinduism? To define Hinduism, the most heard answer is, it is a way of life. And Professor Sharma has asked many times, whose way of life? Whose way of life you are talking about? And another question is about your take on Vivekananda. Your work on Vivekananda is unsettling for many on the right spectrum, left, center right, center left, and all people, because you have deconstructed or busted many myths surrounding around Vivekananda. That Vivekananda was an all-inclusive personality. But when we read the book, we come across the idea that Vivekananda was in fact a Hindu supremacist. Could you advance on this
Thank you.
explanation?
Yeah, I mean, the Vivekananda, Vivekananda is followed by Gandhi. And I'm sure you're going to ask me something on that, but let me couple them together and say, I'm not interested in either Vivekananda or, and you rightly pointed that out, Gandhi, in terms of personalities. They are inspirational figures for millions of people, and that's correct. I'm interested in their ideas. I'm interested in their large, very influential ideas. And as far as Vivekananda is concerned, I needed a foundational perspective about this long 19th century that I'm talking about. And he provides that. He was earnest. He was extremely earnest. He was well-meaning. But he also embodied all the confusions of the 19th century that I've been talking about. Confusions of nationalism, having to... This is the moment you try to define something, or define Hinduism, then you'll have to leave certain things out, include certain things. Now, why can't you say that in the absence of a definition, let this faith or belief or set of beliefs be a chronicle of contradictions? Why are we so afraid to live with contradictions? Why do we need everything neat, clean, tied together, simplified, rationalized, monochromatic, boring? I think we have got into this thanks to, again, the idea of modern nationalism. Too much of diversity also creates conflict. Because if there's no diversity, there'll be no conflict. In fact, what I was pointing out yesterday was something close to that. These days in anthropology, you have a notion called permitted differences. The state can say, I allow these differences to exist and no others. So diversity itself is no benchmark for there being freedom or democracy in a society. It simply could be a slogan by the administration or by the state or the regime. So one has to be careful about these things. And as far as Swami Vivekananda is concerned, he embodied all the contradictions that I've talked about, every single one of them. Wanted to make a rational scientific religion. Now, a rational scientific religion was called what by Max Weber? A disenchanted faith. And what they managed to do in the end was to create this disenchanted faith.
That is what cosmic apathy.
Cosmic apathy. And so I think that's where the problem lies. And he's a fascinating figure. He's a foundational figure, not because he was not well-meaning or he was not somebody who one should not take seriously. One should take him very, very seriously because of all the contradictions of the 19th century are embodied in this single individual.
Yes, in that book you have examined. Vivekananda is known to be one of the most famous disciples of Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. But you argue that there is a vast sea of difference between Ramakrishna and Vivekananda. Could you expand that one?
I mean, that's sort of moving away from the Hindutva conversation. No, they're different. And they're different in endearing ways. I mean, Ramakrishna, I call the first chapter on Ramakrishna as Ramakrishna's 1/4. And the title of the book comes from something Ramakrishna himself said about Vivekananda. He said, when I look at the intensity of my sadhana, my spiritual sadhana, and I look at Vivekananda, he's not even my 1/4. How could he not be Ramakrishna's 1/4? Because Vivekananda was also modern. He was also trying to wrestle with the West. Western interpretations of Hinduism. Schopenhauer, you mentioned earlier. Schopenhauer's interpretation, which he got from Paul Deussen. It didn't come directly from Schopenhauer. And much later, actually. 1892 or 93 or something of that sort. So, Ramakrishna was, again, we have forgotten how to understand complexity. Vivekananda also had fear of complexity to a great extent. Ramakrishna didn't. Ramakrishna was an Advaitin. He believed in Dvaita. He believed in Bhakti. He believed in Tantra. So, he believed in other religions, Islam, Christianity. So, lives in a mosque to experience what it is to live in a mosque, to be a Muslim priest. Lives on a tree. wearing a false tail to experience what it is to be Hanuman and be a devotee, a bhakta of the league of Hanuman, who is incomparable as a bhakta. Vivekananda would have none of that. He wanted a scientific religion. And that's the difference between the two.
Thank you. One question is about your recent book, not recent, it was published in 2021. Elusive Nonviolence, the making and unmaking of Gandhi's ahimsa. In that book you write that Gandhi's formulation of ahimsa is seen through the prism of non-cooperation and satyagraha struggles during the Indian freedom struggle, Indian freedom movement. However, in reality, Gandhi's conceptualization of ahimsa can be seen as a descending and ascending scale, just like a raga in Indian musical traditions. A raga has a descending and descending scale, but it is complete in itself. Please tell us about this new way of looking at Gandhi.
No, I think Gandhi's ahimsa has to be seen in terms of two significant moments, which in the book I call, for the sake of accessibility, the ascending and the descending scales. But there were two elements in his ideal of ahimsa which are crucial. One, he wanted ahimsa to be the central tenet of Hinduism. It's ironical that Gandhi calls himself a Sanatani Hindu. He says, I'm a Sanatani Hindu. He said, early on, he says, I believe in the Varnashram Dharma. He continued to say that with few exceptions till the end of his life, actually. He says, I'm a Sanatani Hindu. But the Hinduism that is given to me, the Hinduism that I've received, non-violence, ahimsa, is not a central tenet of it. You see the 19th century disease of having a center. It's an affliction. Everything must have a center. Everything must have a core. So Gandhi wants Hinduism also to have a core. And he says the core must be ahimsa. That is very central. It doesn't have a core. And he said, I want to artificially introduce ahimsa as an element in Hinduism, and I want it to be accepted by all. That's one. But the other premise is where things get slightly murky. He says the sole purpose of ahimsa, the sole purpose of leading the movement, the sole purpose of fighting this fight is for me in the sense Gandhi, to achieve moksha, to achieve liberation. If it can be done through leading a mass movement, brilliant. But if I fail, anyway I would have done my bit and be on the path to achieving the final release from the cycles of births and deaths. And so there is this personal ideal of moksha interwoven into the idea of the fate of the nation, the fate of the movement, and the fate of ahimsa. And the more he tries to define ahimsa, the more he gets sucked into defining ahimsa in religious terms. And hence the three interpretations of the Bhagavad Gita. He has to have a foundational text where he can argue that the Bhagavad Gita, commonly all of us know, Krishna comes with Arjuna to the battlefield, and says, fight. Arjuna says, I can't fight because I can't kill my relatives, my kin. And then Krishna talks to him for 18 days, supposedly, 18 chapters. And finally, so through a little bit of cajoling, through a little bit of education, a little bit of force, and a great deal of fear, manages to convince Arjuna to fight.
And that is why some scholars have argued that what Gandhi had read in Bhagavad Gita is actually non-existent in Bhagavad Gita itself.
No, it's not. But please understand one thing. You see, it's easy to say it doesn't exist. Here is a man who reads this text 3 times in his life, verse by verse, comma by comma, semicolon by semicolon. You see, the problem is when there is a criticism of the nationalist discourse, it gets personal because people think they were insincere or they were frivolous. They were not frivolous. They were humans, prone to error, prone to complex choices, disastrous choices sometimes. But to read the Bhagavad Gita 3 times in your life and write a commentary. My God, of course, they spent a lot of time in jail, so that helped. But nevertheless, even if you're not in jail, to write a commentary 3 times on a text, tough.
Okay, you have just mentioned about the nationalist discourse, and it is nowadays more clearly understood that the Indian nationalist discourse and Indian nationalist historiography have incorporated much from the Hindu nationalist discourse. There is a curious entanglement of ideas. What is your take on this?
That's bound to happen anywhere. I'm not that worried about the Hindu nationalist elements coming into the historiography. Because once again, my problem is, then we'll get into the discussion, what is culture and what is religion. We'll endlessly debate that. I think we should get away from 3 things, if you permit me to say, in the enterprise of history writing. Since I'm a sort of naturalized intellectual historian, permit me to say 3 things we need to really avoid. One is hero and hero worship. Carlyle writes this famous text in the 19th century, hero and hero worship. I think we should stop this hero worship business. We should desist from it. Look at ideas rather than personalities. Get away from this individual-centric stuff. The second thing is, I had mentioned yesterday as well as today, this whole business of evidence. Historians do need evidence. They can't be writing fiction. They do need archives. But you don't need the tyranny of the archive. You these days have biographies which run into 3 volumes, 4 volumes, because every laundry receipt of Gandhi's is accounted for. Every cup of coffee that Ambedkar drank is part of the biography. This is not biography, this is excess. This is a whole load of nonsense, you see. And I think we should desist from it. But it's important that we have evidence, we have sources. But if we don't have evidence and sources, that's okay. David Shulman, the Indologist, who's often in Kerala and is doing a project on Kudiyattam in Murikuram. David Shulman's written a book called More Than Real. And he says the great anxiety of people in the post-colonial world is how do we come to terms with the Cartesian dualism. I think, therefore I am business. And he says, when we give all the wrong answers, he says, if we were to simply say, I imagine, therefore I am, that what is imagined is as real or more real than real, a lot of our problems will be over. And also, it wouldn't be as boring as some texts turn out to be these days. And then, we'll have a fuller sense of complexities and contradictions than we have now. Because today you say, oh, but I heard this story. And somebody would say, but where is the evidence? And so you ruin a good story. Which brings me to my third point. We have to relearn to ask sharp and relevant questions. We aren't asking questions, we are merely dealing sometimes in rhetoric. Why is this so? Is formulated as a question, but often it's a rhetorical question. I think the question, I often say that in all civilizations, ancient civilizations, those people, whoever they were, Mesopotamia or India or China, they were all faced with one inevitability: early death. There's no penicillin. So even if your water was cleaner, if your food was slightly better, if your air was less polluted, you still didn't have antibiotics and you died very quickly if there was an infection. So they were all scared of early death. And they started asking very simple but pertinent questions. They didn't ask the question, why do we die? Because that's stupid. We these days are asking those kinds of questions. They ask the question, where do we go after we die? Do we go somewhere? Is there a world beyond this world? Do we go as our bodies or we go as something else? So they invented something called the soul. Fascinating, isn't it? So I think we should ask sharper questions.
Yes, soul and God are the great imaginations of mankind. Now the time is around 10:45. Professor Jyotirmaya Sharma is not a practicing Hindu, I think. He is born into a Brahmin family. Likewise, I am born into a Muslim, born in a Muslim community, but however not a practicing Muslim. My question is, apart from Hindu identity and Muslim identity, how can we, as citizens and democrats, resist and oppose the onslaught of Hindutva?
That's a difficult question. First of all, I think I am a great votary of minimizing the linguistic impact of the danger. So when you say resisting the onslaught of Hinduism, I wouldn't use this language.
Not Hinduism, in Hindutva project.
Hindutva, onslaught, there's no onslaught. This wonderful audience is sitting here this morning. None of them are facing any onslaught as of this morning. I don't see a victim of any onslaught. No, I think what we need to do is to have a more sharp, purposeful vocabulary of dissent. That's what I spoke on in 2018 in this very city. A new vocabulary of dissent. We should be able to ignore a lot of things. It's not a sign of weakness. Activist mode would say to you, oh, you must resist and do this and do that. Yeah, do it skillfully. Do it with great thought. Do it with forethought. Do it in ways where whatever you do to win, not because you have to symbolically do it. Uh, the word practicing Hindu itself is complicated. I don't pray. I do not ask God for favors. If I did, I'm sure he would not oblige, or she will not oblige. I find all religious establishments utterly beautiful. I find them very charming. So I go to temples, I see mosques. In fact, this afternoon I'm visiting your famous mosque. I love churches, I love church music, I love chanting if done well. How does a Hindu practice Hinduism? These days you are being forced into a groove, as it's being done with Islam and other things, you know. To be a practicing Muslim, you have to show signs of practice, right? Symbols of practice. I think that's unnecessary. But to your the latter question, how do you withstand the spread of Hindutva? By ignoring it to a great extent. Because something like Hindutva wants you to engage with it, wants you to engage in the abuse, in the invective, in the excess. I think we must ignore that. The violent part of it, one has to strengthen ideas of citizenship, hold the state responsible, hold institutions of the state responsible. And there is a moment today where we understand that the best institutions in the world, democratic institutions in the world, will collapse in the face of populism and demagoguery, Donald Trump. And so I think it's something which one has to do every day in one's own immediate environment. I have friends in Hyderabad who sign petitions every morning against something that the regime has done or the party has done or whatever else it is. I don't think anybody in the regime or the party even receives it. Some of them can't even read. So why write these petitions and send them? Can you do something in your immediate environment? I've had a 9-year conversation with my driver in Hyderabad, who went as a child to a shakha, Rajasa Shakha, about Hindutva and the dream of Akhand Bharat. It's still work in progress. All that he has done in 9 years is to remove his bracelet, BJP bracelet, from his right hand. Has the liberation of heart and mind come? I don't know. But it's an ongoing project. It's more real than signing petitions.
Before winding up the session, the last... audience.
Good morning, sir. When you talk about ignoring the Hindutva project, the way it is being imposed, how can you said ignoring the Hindutva project, the state project of Hindutva, which I would call as Hindu totalitarianism. No, how could you actually ignore when you see that there is a kind of imposition? Take the case of Vande Mataram. No, so it was just a beautiful song. We all sang, every person from every religion sang, but when it is imposed and you have to stand up, as in, what they say, how can you just ignore it? Is that a mode of practice to ignore a totalitarian system when they impose their own dictums, their own rules over us? And just this instance of Vande Mataram, how do you engage with that thing?
If permitted, I want to answer this through a slightly long story. Slightly long story. There's a man called Joseph Brodsky. A lot of you might know of him. Poet, essayist, lived in the Soviet Union. Poet, wrote a poem about Stalin's mustaches. And he said Stalin's mustaches are like the fluttering wings of a crow. And Stalin said, go to the Gulag, go to Siberia, die. And while he's in this prison in Siberia, one day the jailers come and say to him, not to him alone, to the prisoners, today we will have socialist competition in cutting trees. Only one man speaks. No, you've just spoken like you. Why should we sing Vande Mataram? We used to sing it naturally. Why should we be forced to sing? This man says, if I refuse to indulge in this socialist competition in cutting trees, what will happen? And the jailer says, then you will not eat. He has registered his protest. Let's be very careful, step by step. He has registered his protest. Tree cutting starts. He cuts trees like a maniac. The manic energy. 5 o'clock, they say, okay, we stop the socialist competition in cutting trees. He continues to cut. He cuts till 7 o'clock. And there are remarks about him. Oh, he's mad. There are remarks about his identity. He's Jewish. Oh, these Jews are, a little, cracked in up there. At 7 o'clock, he throws the axe and goes to sleep without eating. Right? Brodsky, writing about his own experience many years later in his exile, comes up with a very beautiful formulation. He says, sometimes you neutralize evil by excess of compliance. But you have to register your protest and forego something, sacrifice something. I was asked to be part of some Karma Yogi online examination and whatever. What was it? Some training. All central government employees have to have it. Otherwise, your salary may not be given or your pension will be stopped. 1-day program. Everybody knows my views. Because of my back problem, I couldn't sit through the day. I went, registered, did my attendance, and then put a picture online on the app, which was with a turban. Everybody knew I was mocking them. The instructor knew I was mocking them. And then when the exam came in the evening, I was the one who scored 100 out of 100 and the 9th rank in the country. They said, from next semester, we will not have this. No, I seriously mean this. I think we as a nation, I do it all the time, we exaggerate things. No, I'm in Hyderabad University. Hindutva is not isolated somewhere. We also have our share of it. It's the only place where, with a very strong ABVP, which has won the last election, we had Nivedita Menon come and give a talk, and there was no problem. She couldn't give a talk in any other state, including her own university. She went to the SFI function where they had arranged for another talk by her. The ABVP was present, they asked questions, she engaged with them. No problem. Now, I think there are two lessons here. The adversary also has to be engaged, as long as he or she is ready to be engaged, willing to be engaged, willing to have a conversation. Number one. And number two, I, in my undergraduate days, read a lot of Freud, and he stays. Some of it stays. There's a formulation of Freud which I like very much, and it is, if you hate somebody too much, if you hate somebody excessively, you become that person. My great fear among my secularist friends is the language they speak is the language of the Sangha Parivar. I think we have to reflect. We have to reflect our strategies, our modes within the democratic space. I think that is essential. So I'm not worried, and I should be worried after writing all those books, but I'm not worried.
Thank you. Our time is over. Any more questions from the audience?
Hello. There is a huge increase of violent incidents like Bajrang Dal going to places and attacking minorities, or they're going to places where they're asking people to shut shops, which has increased quite more than what's happening earlier. Are you seeing any pattern in this, especially after BJP is in power for last 12 years?
People killed each other even before that, right? And they killed with impunity. The 84 riots, the Sikh riots were not innocent stuff. The Nelly riots in Assam were not innocent. The core of your question is there a systematic promotion of this violence or condoning of this violence by the regime? The emphatic answer publicly is yes. There is no doubt about it. But the thing is, there's always one man who can destroy it all. This guy in Uttarakhand, this gym instructor, who stood up to the mob. I think it's important to stand up to the mob. But then you lose something. You may lose your life, you may lose your skull, you may lose your arm. We want the government to do everything or somebody else to do everything without us losing anything. You see, this is the liberalism of all profit. I will have liberty, I will have equality, I will have fraternity, I will have everything in life. I won't lose anything. You can't have it both ways.
Thank you, Professor Jyotirmaya Sharma, and thank you everybody in the audience for this scintillating discussion.
Thank you so much for what I think is probably the only person who has the closest reading of anything I have written. I'm ashamed to say I have forgotten many of those things, but you remember. So thank you so much for this engagement. It's been a true privilege to speak to you.
Pleasure, sir. Welcome.
Thank you, sir. I would like to extend our sincere gratitude towards Mr. Jyotirmaya sir, Mr. A.M. Shina sir, for your distinguished presence and the deep insights shared. Thank you.